The rapture as an event is inseparable from Jesus' second coming.
Actually, there is a 7 years separation between the rapture and Jesus' second coming. Most people do not see it, but in Matthew chapter 24, Jesus did separate the two dates using before tribulation and after tribulation. Let's see what it says.
For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and one left. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
But in order to understand the second coming of Christ, we've got to look at the first coming.
From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also, when you see all these things, you know that he is near.
The fig tree represents Israel. And according to Jesus in the passage, when the fig tree puts out leaves, it indicates that summer is near. So when you see Israel showing signs that there is trouble, then we know tribulation is near.
You're not going to believe this, but it turns out that one prophecy in one tiny book of the Old Testament contains enough information to predict the exact year that Christ would be crucified, written hundreds of years before he was even born. It's concerning Daniel. He receives a vision while living in Babylon. The angel Gabriel, who you might recognize from another significant story, tells Daniel this fascinating prophecy. I mean, take a look at this thing. Pause the video if you have to. Finish transgression, atone for wickedness, lasting righteousness, anointed one. So many big words here. What do they all mean? Well, Daniel was just told by Gabriel the exact time the Messiah would come to save the world. 70 weeks wait doesn't seem so bad though. It's just a bit over a year. But historically, we know that didn't happen. In fact, Jesus was over 400 years late. So what's going on here? If you've got a Bible nearby, I want you to grab it. Turn to Daniel 9, and in verse 24, it actually says the word 77s instead of weeks. By doing a test I'll show you in a minute, we can confirm that the term 7 actually means 7 years. Time to pull your calculators out, because every time the word 7 or week is written next to another number, we multiply the two numbers together to get our total. In this example, we multiply 70 by 7 to get our total of 490 years. This is starting to get interesting. These 70 weeks are later split into a period of 7 weeks and 62 weeks, with 1 week missing. 7 weeks, or 49 years, to rebuild the temple, and 62 weeks, or 434 years, until the coming and killing of Jesus, the Anointed One. As for the missing 7 years, well, that may potentially, hypothetically, be very important later on. Well, we've got real numbers here, real time periods. So why don't we test to see if this is how it actually happened? And finally dive into this mysterious missing week. In John's Gospel, Jesus is confronted by Jews who claimed the temple took 46 years to build, pretty close to the 49 years from Daniel's prophecy, but it's 3 years short. Well, believe it or not, those 3 years are tallied in Ezra 4, where we find out that the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem was actually delayed for legal reasons, a period of time which, according to the biblical dates, was about 3 years in length. So all in all, it took 49 years to build the temple. The prophecy states that from the decree to rebuild Jerusalem, there would be 77s minus that mysterious one. So really, it's 69 sevens, which equates to 483 years. A Persian ruler by the name of Artaxerxes, cool name, made this exact decree on March 4th, 444 BC. If a year contains 360 days, 30 days for 12 months, that's 173,880 days. If you count the days forward from the decree, you land at the exact date of Jesus' triumphal entry, where he publicly revealed he was the Messiah. The Old Testament had Christ's first coming predicted down to the day. But what does that have to do with his second coming? Well, I believe all our answers hinge on what this final week actually is. It's widely accepted by Christians that this final week is known as the tribulation, 7 years of suffering at the end of the world. But there's a problem with a specific event said to occur during this time of testing, the rapture. The rapture is a belief that Jesus will call believers into the sky to receive our glorified bodies and reunite with him. Sounds pretty cool, right? But what you find is that not all Christians agree with each other about when this will happen. There are three main views, and unlike most topics, I believe all three views are convincing and have strong biblical evidence. One idea is that the rapture happens before the tribulation, meaning that us Christians won't experience the 7 years of hell on earth at all. Jesus warns that the day of his return will be unexpected and will close like a trap on those not expecting him. He goes on to say that we should pray that we may be able to escape all that is about to happen. In Revelation, Jesus instructs John to write to the church in Philadelphia, not Philadelphia in the US, saying that he will keep them from the hour of trial which shall come upon the whole world. How nice of him. Peter even makes a claim that God protects his people through the trials of Judgment Day by referencing Genesis, where God delivered Lot out of Sodom before he sent the fire and brimstone. Lot was a righteous man, although his wife became the salt of the earth. Lastly, Revelation 19 describes the dinner celebrating the marriage between the Lamb and the church. That's us. Saints in white linen are in attendance, and these saints later join Jesus in his conquest of the Antichrist's army. One could argue that these are raptured individuals who have just been married to Christ and now go on a campaign of conquest with him. It's hard to see how the church could be present during some of the horrendous judgments issued by Christ in Revelation 6. That, coupled with the fact that the previous two chapters see all the believers worshipping God in heaven, makes a convincing argument that we'll be taken out of the world to be with God in heaven before the tribulation hits.
Jesus did separate the two dates using before tribulation and after tribulation.
One of the strongest verses for the pre-trib argument is the following. 2 Thessalonians gives us one of the most detailed explanations of the Antichrist in the whole Bible. But there's one verse that sticks out. It indicates that there's some force or entity that is holding back the coming of the man of lawlessness, also known as the Antichrist. It also suggests that the Antichrist can't come until that entity is taken out of the way. The pre-tribulation view believes that the church is that entity. And once removed via the rapture, the Antichrist's rule will begin. The next view. The mid-tribulation rapture position cuts the 7 years in half. In Daniel, the fourth beast, who is the Antichrist as outlined in Revelation, will have the saints delivered into his hands for a time, times, and half a time, which is a period of 3.5 years. A hugely significant end times event lines up perfectly with this timeline, but I'll cover that in a minute. Firstly, it seems pretty clear that the term saints refers to God's people. Daniel 12 expands on this idea further, saying that in the time of great distress, it will be a time, times, and half a time, when the power of the holy people has been broken, that the resurrection will occur and we'll receive heavenly bodies. In other words, we'll receive glorified bodies just in time for the second half of the tribulation, the really painful half. Remember that significant event I mentioned earlier? Well, there's a pair of fascinating characters called the two witnesses. These witnesses perform miracles and prophesy for 1,260 days, which happens to equate to 3.5 years. When they finish this period of testimony, the Antichrist will kill them, and 3.5 days later, God will resurrect them from the dead. This theory suggests they won't be the only ones, as this coincides with the resurrection that will occur regarding all of God's saints. So the second view sees the 7-year tribulation in two parts. The first 3.5 years sees the rise of the Antichrist and the ministry of the two witnesses. and the second half sees the tribulation events unfold as recorded in Revelation 6, initiated by an act of defiance by the Antichrist, the killing of the two witnesses, and the rapture of the church. The post-tribulation view. This is perhaps the most uncomfortable view, where instead of Christians having a break from the world in heaven for a time, it's believed that Jesus will come once and will meet us in the air after all of the end times tribulation has occurred. So we have to suffer, which is a bit scary. If this is really the case, can we say that God truly loves us if he wants to put us through all that? Some of the things mentioned in Revelation are absolutely horrifying. How could God allow this to happen to his chosen people? But what if we've understood this part wrong? Romans 5 says that tribulations produce character. And I don't know about you, but I want to have a lot of that when Jesus comes for me. The Bible also says God is a God who comforts us in our troubles and turns all situations for good. But the strongest evidence comes from Jesus himself, saying in Matthew 24 that after this time of distress, he will appear coming in the clouds, and that his angels shall gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. 2 Thessalonians supports this idea, stating that Jesus will not return until the Antichrist is revealed, the man who is doomed to destruction. Now, a central point of this post-tribulation view has to do with the interpretations of the rapture verses in these two passages. The first two views sees this event as a meeting and continuing, as if a friend of yours meets you halfway up a hiking trail and you continued on together to climb the mountain. This view, however, is more like a welcoming committee, where instead of ascending with him to heaven, we'll be enthusiastically welcoming him back down to earth.